Let's travel back in time. Imagine a world without cars, electricity, or the internet. Picture a time when the only light after sunset came from candles and lanterns, and the fastest way to travel was on horseback or by foot. This was the reality for people in the Middle Ages, a period spanning roughly from the 5th to the 15th centuries. It was an era marked by significant changes and developments, both culturally and socially. Life was very different then. The rhythm of daily life was dictated by the seasons and the rising and setting of the sun. People worked from dawn until dusk, and their lives were closely tied to the land and the natural world around them. It was a time of castles and knights, of grand feasts and tournaments. The nobility lived in fortified castles, which served as both homes and defensive structures. Knights, clad in armor, were the military elite, sworn to protect their lords and lands. But it was also a time of hard work and simple living. The vast majority of people were peasants, who worked the land to produce food for themselves and their lords. Their lives were filled with toil, from ploughing fields to tending livestock. The Middle Ages followed the fall of the Roman Empire. As the centralized power of Rome crumbled, Europe entered a period of fragmentation and decentralization. The remnants of Roman infrastructure, such as roads and aqueducts, were still in use, but the grand cities of the empire had largely fallen into disrepair. Europe was divided into many kingdoms. These were often small and constantly at war with one another. The political landscape was a patchwork of territories ruled by kings, dukes and counts, each vying for power and influence. Life was largely rural, with most people living in villages and working the land. These villages were self-sufficient communities, where everyone had a role to play. From the blacksmith to the baker, each person contributed to the well-being of the community. Let's explore what daily life was like for people in this fascinating era. From the bustling markets where traders sold their goods to the quiet monasteries where monks copied ancient texts, the Middle Ages were a time of both hardship and beauty. Join us as we delve into the lives of the people who lived through this remarkable period in history. Medieval society was structured like a pyramid, with each level representing a different class of people. This hierarchical system was rigid and defined the roles and responsibilities of everyone within the society. At the top were the kings and queens, the ultimate rulers of the land. They held the highest authority and were often seen as divinely appointed leaders. They ruled the land and its people with absolute power, making crucial decisions that affected the entire kingdom. Their word was law, and they were responsible for the protection and prosperity of their realm. Below them were the nobles, knights, and wealthy landowners. These individuals were granted lands by the king in exchange for their loyalty and military service. They played a vital role in maintaining the king's power and enforcing his rule. Nobles enjoyed privileges and power, living in grand castles and hosting lavish feasts. They had the authority to govern their lands, collect taxes, and administer justice. Their wealth and influence were significant in medieval society. The clergy, members of the church, also held significant influence. They were responsible for the spiritual well-being of the people and played a crucial role in education and the preservation of knowledge. Clergy provided spiritual guidance and education, teaching the principles of Christianity and ensuring that the populace adhered to religious practices. Monasteries and churches were centers of learning and culture. At the base of the pyramid were the peasants, who made up the majority of the population. They worked the land, producing the food and goods that sustained the entire society. Peasants lived in small villages and had a hard life, toiling in the fields from dawn to dusk. Despite their crucial role, they had little power or wealth and were often subject to the demands of their lords and the harsh realities of medieval life. Life for peasants revolved around farming. From the break of dawn, the entire family would rise to begin their laborious day. The fields were their livelihood, and every member of the household had a role to play. The men would often take on the more physically demanding tasks, while women and children contributed in various ways, ensuring that every inch of the land was utilized to its fullest potential. Men, women, and even children worked from dawn till dusk. The rhythm of their lives was dictated by the seasons and the needs of their crops. Spring was for planting, summer for tending, and autumn for harvesting. Winter brought a brief respite, but even then there were tools to mend and preparations to be made for the next cycle. The work was grueling, but it was essential for their survival. They ploughed fields, planted crops, and harvested what they could. The tools they used were simple, often handmade, and the work was backbreaking. Oxen were a common sight, their strength harnessed to plough the heavy soil. Planting was a meticulous task, each seed placed with care in the hope of a bountiful harvest. When the time came to reap what they had sown, the entire community would come together, working tirelessly to gather the crops before the weather turned. Their diet consisted mainly of bread, porridge, and vegetables. These staples were the backbone of their nutrition, providing the energy needed for their demanding work. Bread was often coarse and made from whatever grains were available. Porridge, a simple mixture of grains and water, was a common meal, sometimes flavoured with herbs or vegetables from their gardens. Fresh produce was a welcome addition, though it was often seasonal and limited. Meat was a rare treat. For most peasants, it was reserved for special occasions or celebrations. When an animal was slaughtered, every part was used, ensuring nothing went to waste. The scarcity of meat made it a highly valued commodity, and its presence at a meal was a cause for joy and gratitude. On most days, however, their meals were simple and humble, reflecting the hard realities of their lives. Nobles enjoyed a life of leisure and luxury. Their days were filled with activities that showcased their wealth and status. Unlike the peasants, they had the means to indulge in various pastimes and pursuits. Their homes were grand castles filled with fine furnishings and decorations. They had servants to attend to their needs, allowing them to focus on more leisurely pursuits. They lived in castles, wore fine clothes, and feasted on rich foods. Their garments were made from luxurious fabrics, often adorned with intricate embroidery and jewels. Meals in a noble household were elaborate affairs, featuring a variety of dishes and flavors. Exotic spices and ingredients were used to create sumptuous feasts, a stark contrast to the simple fare of the peasants. Banquets were common, with music, dancing and entertainment to delight their guests. Knights trained for battle and participated in tournaments. These warriors were the protectors of the realm, their skills honed through rigorous training. From a young age, they were taught the art of combat, mastering the use of swords, lances and other weapons. Tournaments were a chance to showcase their prowess, with jousting and other competitions drawing crowds of spectators. These events were not only a test of skill, but also a display of chivalry and honor. Their lives were vastly different from those of the peasants. The stark contrast between the two classes was evident in every aspect of their existence. While nobles enjoyed comfort and privilege, peasants toiled endlessly to sustain themselves. This division was a defining feature of medieval society, shaping the experiences and opportunities available to each group. Despite their hardships, peasants found ways to endure, their resilience a testament to the human spirit. Agriculture was the backbone of the medieval economy. Peasants worked the land using simple tools. They grew crops like wheat, barley and oats. Livestock such as cows, pigs and sheep provided food and other resources. Trade also played a role in medieval life. Merchants travelled far distances, bringing goods like spices, silks and metalware. Towns and cities grew as centres of commerce. Section 5. Learning and Laughter. Education was primarily controlled by the church. Monasteries served as centres of learning. Boys from wealthy families might receive an education in Latin, mathematics and religious studies. For entertainment, people enjoyed storytelling, music and dancing. Festivals and fairs offered a break from the daily routine. Games like chess and backgammon were popular pastimes. Section 6. The Church's influence. The Church played a central role in medieval life. It provided spiritual guidance, offered education, and cared for the sick. People attended church regularly. Religious beliefs influenced every aspect of their lives. Section 7. Beyond the castle walls. Life in medieval times wasn't all about castles and knights. It was also a time of great innovation. New technologies like the printing press and the watermill emerged. These inventions transformed society. Section 8. Echoes of the past. Although the Middle Ages may seem distant, their legacy lives on. Castles and cathedrals still stand today, reminding us of this era. Literature and art from this time continue to captivate us. Section 9. A time of change. The Middle Ages were a period of significant change and transformation. From the fall of the Roman Empire to the dawn of the Renaissance, this era shaped the course of Western civilization. Understanding the Middle Ages provides us with a deeper appreciation for our own world.